All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at some fascinating source material today that literally dismantles everything we thought we knew about weight loss and human metabolism. For decades, we've approached our bodies like simple math problems, but today we're going to look at the undeniable biological facts that show exactly why that approach is failing us completely.
The material actually kicks off by validating a deep frustration that millions of people feel every single day. You know the drill, right? You wake up, skip breakfast, push through a grueling workout on an empty stomach, and nothing. The scale absolutely refuses to budge. The harsh reality we're uncovering here is that the harder you fight your biology with extreme deprivation, well, the more fiercely your biology fights back to protect the status quo. So why exactly does it do that? We have to ask ourselves why our ancient survival mechanisms treat a modern restrictive diet like a mortal threat. It basically creates this massive biological stalemate. Think about it. For 99% of human history, food was really scarce. Our bodies evolved to survive famine, not to look great in a swimsuit for summer. So when you drastically cut calories, your internal alarms just start blaring.
And to put that into perspective, look at the failure rate of traditional dieting. 95%. 95. This completely proves that regaining weight is absolutely not a lack of willpower, and it certainly isn't a character flaw. It's just a fundamental systemic misunderstanding of our own internal machinery. You literally cannot out-willpower a brain that genuinely believes it is starving to death.
So, here's how we're going to break all this down today. First, the great dieting myth. Second, your hormonal command center. Third, the hidden metabolic engines. Fourth, the gut and brain connection. And finally, number 5, unlocking metabolic freedom. Starting right off with Section 1, the great dieting myth, and exactly why calories in, calories out is fundamentally broken. The source text brilliantly illustrates that we are not some primitive steam engine. We're not a simple furnace where you just shovel in fuel and expect it to burn at a totally constant rate. Actually, your body is a sensing, highly adaptive ecosystem. Think of it like a biological supercomputer that's processing thousands of signals every single second, from the food you eat to your stress levels to how much you slept last night. Bottom line, your body doesn't count calories, it interprets signals.
And when those signals are off, it builds into this downward spiral of metabolic trauma. When we scream famine to our bodies through extreme calorie cutting, step 1 immediately triggers step 2. Our basal metabolic rate drops. Then, hunger hormones spike just to force us to eat. And if we resist that, well, the body actually begins breaking down our muscle tissue just to conserve energy. You basically end up starving yourself just to reach a complete metabolic standstill.
Moving on to Section 2, your hormonal command center. Time to meet the real masters of the house.
Let's start with insulin, the gatekeeper. The crucial takeaway from the material is that if your insulin is high, say from a diet full of processed carbs and constant snacking, your fat stores are literally locked behind a closed gate. It honestly doesn't matter how many miles you run. If insulin is elevated, your body just cannot access stored fat. That leaves your cells totally starved for fuel, which, by the way, is exactly what makes you hangry and metabolically rigid. Then we have leptin, the satiety signal. Now, in a perfect world, leptin rises as we gain fat, telling our brain, hey, we're full, stop eating, let's burn some energy. But thanks to modern, highly processed diets, many people develop leptin resistance. This means leptin is essentially screaming, we are full, but the brain is completely deaf to the signal. It genuinely believes it's starving, even if you have plenty of excess energy stored up.
And right alongside that is ghrelin, the hunger ghost. When you aggressively cut calories, ghrelin steps right in and screams, starve. And what's really terrifying here is that after an extreme diet, ghrelin can actually stay elevated for months. It's a phenomenon the text calls the ghrelin ghost, and it pretty much ensures you will obsess over high-calorie food until you regain the weight.
Finally, we absolutely cannot ignore cortisol, the stress trap. Regardless of how perfectly you eat, chronic stress keeps cortisol running high. This acts like a metabolic poison that totally bypasses your diet, telling your body to hoard dangerous, visceral fat right around your vital organs just for protection. If your body constantly feels under threat, whether that's from work, a lack of sleep, or just life, it simply will not prioritize fat loss. No way. Which brings us to Section 3, the hidden metabolic engines, and where your energy actually goes. If you look at the breakdown of your daily energy expenditure, it's pretty wild. Notice that your basal metabolic rate, which is just the energy required to keep your heart beating, your lungs breathing, and your brain firing,
accounts for a massive 70% of your daily calorie burn. Exercise is just this tiny sliver of the pie, yet it's where most people focus absolutely all of their attention.
But here's the real danger. If you slash your calories too aggressively, your body protects itself. Your BMR can plummet by up to a terrifying 40%. 40%! Your thyroid literally dims the lights just to conserve energy. You've effectively shrunk your internal engine, making weight loss mathematically almost impossible.
And then there's NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Think of this as the background noise of your metabolism. Fidgeting, talking with your hands, just holding your posture. When you restrict food, your body subconsciously dials this NEAT way down. It steals away hundreds of burned calories a day without you even realizing you've stopped tapping your foot.
But you can fight back using the thermic effect of food. This is exactly why the source material highlights protein as a metabolic secret weapon. It requires up to 30% of its own caloric value just to be digested and processed. So simply by eating protein, you are actively increasing your metabolic rate. You're literally making your body work harder just to digest it.
All right, moving on to Section 4, the gut and brain connection, also known as your second metabolic organ.
It's honestly incredible to think about, but the trillions of bacteria living inside our gut are highly active participants in our metabolism. They aren't just along for the ride, folks. They communicate directly with our brain, they can completely alter our cravings, and they even dictate how many calories we actually absorb from the food we eat.
For example, obesogenic bacteria thrive on processed sugars and artificial sweeteners, and they literally extract more calories from your food while driving up systemic inflammation. But the good news? You can totally shift your internal landscape to a lean microbiome. By feeding your gut diverse fibers and fermented foods, you breed bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, and butyrate directly signals your brain to reduce appetite and dramatically improve insulin sensitivity.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Unlocking Metabolic Freedom, how to stop fighting your biology.
First things first, we have to respect our circadian rhythms. Your body operates on a strict 24-hour clock. Eating really late at night, right when your body is preparing for sleep and cellular repair, sends a super confusing signal that spikes blood sugar and promotes fat storage. This proves that the timing of your meals is just as critical as the actual food on your plate.
So what are the true sustainable pillars of fat loss according to the material? Well, you need to prioritize protein and fiber to manage those hunger hormones and boost your thermic burn. Increase your daily NEAT, so walk more, stand up, just keep moving. Protect your sleep like your life depends on it, aiming for 7 to 9 hours so your growth hormone stays high. And finally, aggressively manage your stress to keep cortisol from locking your visceral fat away. These shifts give your cells the signals of safety and abundance they desperately need.
So I'm going to leave you with this final, vital question. Are you ready to stop fighting your biology? Because your body is absolutely not your enemy. It's a brilliant, highly adaptive partner just waiting for the right signals. If we can stop punishing it with starvation and start nourishing it with quality signals, the power to change that internal conversation is entirely 100% in your hands. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.